Headlines scream across the globe. President Trump has unilaterally detonated trade talks with Canada. But this time, the bombshell didn't just hit Ottawa. In a stunning move, the president publicly undercut his own negotiating team, leaving them blindsided and powerless. With the threat of new, crippling 35% tariffs looming and the entire USMCA trade deal hanging in the balance, the North American economy is teetering on a knife's edge. How can you uphold a deal when its most powerful architect keeps trying to tear it down? After years of brutal negotiations, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, was supposed to be the new bedrock of continental trade. Championed by President Trump himself as a historic victory, it was designed to create a new era of stability and predictability. It was the rule book, the foundation upon which trillions of dollars in commerce would be built. With a mandatory review scheduled for 2026, the deal was meant to be a living document, managed by professional negotiators from all three nations. But beneath the surface of this new agreement, a new global conflict was brewing, one centered not on cars or steel, but on data and digital services. Like many countries around the world, Canada was moving forward with a digital services tax, or DST. The goal was to force giant, multinational tech companies to pay taxes in the countries where they make their profits. Ottawa saw it as a matter of basic fairness, but the White House saw it as something else entirely, a direct, discriminatory attack on America's most successful companies. This single issue became a flashpoint. While Canadian officials insisted they were willing to negotiate a solution as part of a broader international framework, the Trump administration saw it as a line in the sand. This clash over who gets to tax big tech would become the pretext for an action that threatened to blow up the very foundation of the North American partnership. In late June 2025, the carefully constructed process of international diplomacy was detonated by a single unilateral declaration. President Donald Trump announced to the world that he was immediately halting all trade negotiations with Canada. He cited Canada's planned digital services tax as a blatant attack on American tech companies and promised to unveil new punitive tariffs within a week. But the real bombshell was not the threat itself, but how it was delivered. In making his public declaration, President Trump completely undercut his own trade team. While his official negotiators were engaged in the painstaking, behind-the-scenes work of diplomacy, the president blew the process up in full view of the world, leaving them blindsided, powerless, and humiliated. This wasn't just a change in policy, it was the abandonment of the process itself. The move sent a clear and chilling message to Ottawa and other world capitals. The official U.S. negotiating team was irrelevant. The only negotiator who mattered was the man in the Oval Office. To compound the chaos, the president then escalated his threats, announcing a new, crippling 35% tariff on all Canadian goods that were not compliant with the strict letter of the USMCA, set to take effect on August 1st. While this technically left the 85% of trade that did comply untouched, it weaponized the margins of the deal, creating maximum uncertainty and fear. The conflict then spiraled beyond trade, as President Trump began publicly linking the dispute to his anger over Canada's recent recognition of a Palestinian state, suggesting the two issues made a deal nearly impossible. It was a stunning display of transactional, high-stakes, and deeply personal diplomacy that shredded the traditional rulebook. In Ottawa, the reaction to Trump's outburst was a mixture of exasperation and steely resolve. The Canadian government issued a calm but firm statement, declaring that it would continue to negotiate in the interest of the Canadian people and would not be threatened or forced into a bad deal. This was not just political posturing. It was a reflection of a fundamental diplomatic crisis. How could Canada negotiate in good faith when the other side's leader had just publicly declared that negotiations were over? Who were they even supposed to talk to? The official U.S. trade team, whose authority had just been publicly nullified, or the president himself, whose positions seemed to shift based on the day's headlines. The situation was made even more frustrating for the Canadians by the fact that they had already signaled a willingness to compromise on the very issue that had triggered the crisis. The Canadian government had publicly stated its preference for a multilateral solution to the digital tax issue through the OECD and was prepared to amend its own law to align with an international standard. But that willingness to find a reasonable, rules-based solution was completely ignored. It became clear that the digital tax was merely a pretext for a much larger power play. The president's decision to link the trade dispute to the separate, highly charged geopolitical issue of Palestinian statehood confirmed Canada's worst fears. They were no longer dealing with a predictable partner, but with an erratic leader for whom all issues were leveraged for the same transactional goal. Canada was now in an impossible position, trying to save a landmark trade deal while its most powerful signatory was actively trying to sabotage it. This has created a dangerous vacuum at the heart of the North American economy. The USMCA, a deal meant to ensure stability, has been thrown completely off balance. With the US president negotiating by impulse and his own team sidelined, there is no longer a credible process for resolving disputes. This has forced Canada to reconsider its own strategy, acting purely in its own national interest rather than in the collective spirit of the agreement. The instability has sent shockwaves through the third partner, Mexico, with former negotiators like Ildefonso Guajardo publicly warning that this kind of pressure tactic threatens the very foundation of the pact. All eyes are now turning to the mandatory review of the USMCA in 2026. What was supposed to be a routine checkup now looms as a potential breaking point. The trust that underpins any international agreement has been shattered. The White House has demonstrated that it is willing to blow up the deal over unrelated grievances, leaving its partners to wonder if the agreement is worth the paper it's written on. For a furniture maker in a city like Montreal, the USMCA was supposed to provide clarity. Her business thrives by using a mix of Canadian wood and specialized hardware imported from Europe to create designer products for the massive US market. Because some of her components come from outside North America, her products fall into that narrow slice of goods that are not fully USMCA compliant. For years, this was a manageable cost of doing business. But President Trump's threatened 35% tariff changes everything. It's a potential death sentence for her export business. The most damaging part is the paralyzing uncertainty. Does she halt shipments to her biggest customers in New York and Boston, risking the loss of contracts she has spent years building? Does she preemptively lay off skilled workers that she will never be able to get back? Does she cancel plans for a new line of equipment? The president's unpredictable, tweet-driven approach to trade policy means she has no way of knowing if the tariffs will actually be implemented or if they could be reversed tomorrow in another public declaration. This chaos isn't just a headline. It's a poison that seeps into every business decision. It freezes investment, destroys confidence, and forces entrepreneurs like her to start looking for other markets, even if it means shrinking their business. The cost is measured in lost growth, lost jobs, and the slow, painful erosion of a cross-border partnership that was once the bedrock of her success. She is a hostage in a trade war where the rules can change at any moment, without warning and without reason. The pain from that 35% tariff doesn't stop at the border. For a small business owner running a chain of upscale furniture stores in the United States, that Canadian-made furniture is a key part of his brand. His customers value its unique design and high quality. The threatened tariff puts him in an impossible bind. Suddenly, his supply chain is broken. He can no longer get one of his most popular product lines. He is now forced to scramble to find a replacement, which likely won't have the same quality or design that his customers expect. His other option is to absorb a massive price increase if the products do ship, a cost that would either destroy his profit margins or force him to pass it on to his American customers, almost certainly leading to a collapse in sales. This is the boomerang effect of Trump's trade policy. The tariff, intended as a weapon against Canada, is now inflicting direct harm on American small businesses. This store owner may now have to reduce staff hours or lay off employees because a key revenue stream has vanished overnight. It demonstrates the fundamental folly of attacking a deeply integrated supply chain. You cannot punish a Canadian manufacturer without also punishing the American business that sells their product and the American consumer who buys it. The weapon fired north has caused an explosion in his own backyard, leaving American entrepreneurs and workers to clean up the mess. A trade deal hailed as a landmark achievement is now on the brink of collapse, not from foreign pressure, but from within. By unilaterally detonating negotiations and undercutting his own team, President Trump has shattered the trust that holds the continent's economy together. With Canada refusing to be bullied and the future of the USMCA in doubt, North America is entering its most perilous chapter in modern history. In the race to define the future, will North America win together, or will both nations lose by trying to go it alone? Are you American or Canadian? Share your story and your perspective in the comments below.